school board meeting to order. The roll, please.
Penny Costa. Here. Tanya Houston.
Here.
Heather Thunderman.
Here.
Daniel Paulson.
Here.
Amy Rose Swanson. Here. John Sakota.
Here.
David Steyer.
Here.
Jim Swanson.
Here.
Tricia Thompson.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum to do business. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The district mission statement says that the school district of the Menomonie area, by embracing the unique needs and using the strengths of our diverse community, is dedicated to preparing all students to become lifelong learners, caring individuals, and responsible citizens. All right, the agenda order. Does anyone have any requests or changes? Hearing none, we will commence with the order as published. Recommendations and commendations. Amanda Kruger. Amanda, it's my very distinct pleasure to congratulate you for being named the 1980 Usella Educator of the Year. Fantastic. Congratulations. Highlight on youth.
So the girls' golf team is going to be our September highlight on youth. They had a scheduling change due to the last rain that came through, so they're actually going to present at the second meeting of the month instead of tonight. So we can go ahead and move on to the next agenda item, but they will be here in 2 weeks.
All right. Student representative communications update. I'm sorry. Yes. Student representative communications. Now we're here.
So we have 2 new students joining us from Menomonie High School, and some very terrific role models in representing our whole high school there. I had a chance to have lunch with the 2 ladies last week, and if you want to go ahead and introduce yourselves and to the board, and then go ahead and give your report, that'd be wonderful. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Corinne Odell. I'm student body president at Menomonie High School.
I'm Kaylin Sandy. I'm the vice president this year.
Okay, and so our school year is off to a great start. The year started a little early for the freshmen as they attended a day early and participated in the high school's WIC program, which this program helps the freshman class get acquainted with upperclassmen and the school. And so a big event coming up this year for our community is homecoming, and homecoming is put together by student council. And our theme this year is decades. And so classes compete in floats, skits, wall decorations, assembly games, and dress-up days. We have our skit assembly on Wednesday, and then we have our coronation and alumni assembly, which this year we're having all captains speak at the coronation assembly, so we're representing other sports as well, which is on Friday, and the alumni tea is on Friday before the assembly. And also, every sporting event is home during the week. Thank you to Mr. Hunt on organizing that.
Okay, so then we have all of our sports that we're going to talk about. So the football team played River Falls on Friday and they lost 25-18. Cross country had a meet at home last weekend. The girls were second to Hudson and the boys were seventh overall. Swim competed last week against Memorial in a dual meet. And tennis is competing tonight against New Richmond at home. Golf is ranked 4th in the BRC right now, and they have a new student, so a transfer student, leading the team. Volleyball participated in a tournament in Hudson this past weekend, and boys soccer tied their last game against McDonald at home on Friday.
And if you guys have any questions, we can answer them too.
And we should point out Corinne snuck out of the tennis meet quick, so thanks for rushing over. Better hustle back too.
Thanks for letting me come.
Coach Hastings is very accommodating. Thank you, great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next, community communications. Dale Dahlke. Oh, and we have a full agenda, so 3 minutes, please.
3, huh? It's okay. It's a good thing I have some notes. I'm going to talk a little bit longer. So, thank you for allowing me to talk. Is this a fine spot?
Perfect.
Okay. I think probably the best source of information for you as a board is probably coming from someone who's neutral and unbiased and a fact-filled person that has all the facts needed for the need for lights at our sports complex at Menomonie High School. Well, you are in luck because I am just that person. I have 45 years of track and field coaching and now officiating, and I have firsthand observed the benefits, close observation of thousands of athletes and how they improve their physical and mental health through involvement in track and field. They have learned about goals and how to achieve goals. They've established healthy self-concepts, and that's why I have a totally unbiased view of each. Many of these athletes continue to love the sport of running well into their adulthood. It follows them and continues to improve their physical and mental health into their adulthood. But you've really heard me say all that before when I came to you to approve the building of the track a couple of years ago. But now we're on to phase 2. And generous contributions have come forth to support this project. I think, and I hope you do too, I think that speaks loudly for the value of this project. I think that really tells the whole story. A lighted sports complex has a multitude of benefits. They include being able to host large track and field meets, like the conference championship and regional tournaments and sectional tournaments and large invitationals. Now last year we hosted the Big Rivers Conference meet. We were very fortunate to have some fine weather. We got done just before dark. Had we had one bolt of lightning or thunder, we would have postponed it 30 minutes for each time we heard or saw such weather situations. We would have never gotten done before darkness hit us. You know, the WAA is never going to assign us a regional track meet for that very reason. And now, by the way, there's a new emphasis on thunder as well as the lightning, because where there's thunder, it's been proven that there is lightning. So, there are many values to having large meets like these invitationals and like sectionals and regionals and the conference meet. Benefits for our student athletes. Remember, these are student athletes, and in the spring of the year, and late part of May especially, it would be nice to not have our athletes have to travel all the time, get out of school early, get home late, and so on. Whoops. I'll bring it to an end. Another is financial. Less busing, of course, but think about the community benefit. These meets have about 240 male, 240 female athletes at each of them. That's 480 plus their coaches. We're coaching 500. Think about how many parents, grandparents, and friends are going to come. Meets are generally pretty long. Think about the meals that they're going to buy in the city of Menomonie and the gas that they might purchase. I think most of our business people would probably really love the opportunity to meet the needs of these people. And this is to say nothing of the other sports like soccer and football that could also have evening venues and opportunities. By the way, in closing, on Rice Lake, New Richmond, River Falls, Hudson, Chippewa Falls, all benefit from their lighted facilities. I hope you recognize the importance of this. And again, the people that have contributed, I think, are a testament to how important a lighted facility like this really is.
Thank you. Tricia Bauer.
Good evening, I'm Tricia Bauer. Back in the fall of 2015, I came in front of the school board as part of a collective effort to encourage the board to allocate funds towards phase 1 of the Menomonie High School Sports Complex. Our goal at that time was to get that track built. I want to thank you for allocating those funds so that we could reach our goal. It is a beautiful track. We reached our goal, so what do you do when you reach your goal? You set a new goal. So here I am again. For those of you who were not board members at the time, I will give you a little history on why I am so passionate about the Menomonie High School Sports Complex. My oldest son Nathan was hired in 2014 as a FIAD teacher at Downsville and Knapp Elementary Schools, and also as the adaptive FIAD teacher for the entire Menomonie School District. Sadly, Nathan was killed in a car accident in March of 2015. In the fall of 2015, when I first spoke to the board, the Nathan Bauer Memorial Fund had already donated approximately $20,000 towards phase 1 of the sports complex. Since then, the Nathan Bauer Memorial Fund has been able to donate an additional $23,000 plus to the Community Foundation of Dunn County for the future phases of the sports complex. But I'm not here tonight to brag about our donations. It is truly my intention today to let you know my family and I appreciate your help with phase 1 and to also kindly encourage you to help in the future developments of the Menomonie Sports High School Complex. Thank you. Thank you.
Matt Flood, please.
All right, so I'm here about the same topic. I am a little biased because I'm the girls track coach. Been coaching for 20 years here. I actually ran for Menomonie. I'm a Menomonie homegrown guy. So I really appreciate the complex. And I know some of you weren't on that board at the time, but it was really a community effort. We got through phase 1. I think we've done a great job of taking care of that. Our sponsors have paid their money. And now I think it's time to move on to phase 2. And it's about, clearly it's about the track for me and the lights and those things. But there are other things, the sound system, and that are going to benefit other sports. And so I appreciate that totally. But I'm convinced there's some money out there that we can use towards this. I think we can get more sponsors. Bart has said he'd help. Jim Schmidt is willing to go out there. Craig and I are willing to go out there as coaches and try to drum up that money again. And we're hoping that maybe down the road here, sooner than later, that we can try to get enough funds to, if you guys meet us halfway, we can get that taken care of, get those lights going, and really make this, a great track. And it already is. I mean, if you haven't been to a track meet, we've had a ton of people there, a lot of athletes coming through. Middle school, we're hosting their meets. We host great meets. We've had every conference coach come to us after our conference meet and say, hey, you guys should host it every year. And that, it's just a good location. You can see every event, shots right there. For a coach, for me to be at that track and be able to talk to all my athletes. As the head coach, I work with sprinters, but I want to interact, and we used to be all spread out, and it's just such a great place right there. If you haven't been out there, you should. We also have a concession stand that we're using to earn money, which is really helping our program, which we weren't able to do before. So again, I don't want to take away from the other guys that are going to talk a little bit, but we really hope that you can consider this phase two, get it going, get it done, and you know, really make this a destination to school, and the track is a big part of it as you drive up. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Elizabeth Woodward.
Hello, my name is Elizabeth Woodward, and I'm speaking here to inform you about how important it is to help students feel comfortable at lunch. During most of the school day, students are told where to go and what to do, but during lunch, they're given mostly free rein. This can be good because it's a time to relax, talk with friends, and do what you want. But it can be bad because more exclusion can occur. Personally, I have very few friends, so if they aren't at school for some reason, or if it's the start of the school year and I can't find them, I just sit by myself and read during lunch. I'm also shy, so even though I want to include others who might be sitting alone, I don't feel comfortable walking up to them to ask if they want to sit with me. I've also talked to some other high schoolers and parents of high schoolers who share similar thoughts. Since I would like to make it so students feel comfortable inviting people to their table or sitting at a table with people they might not know, I'm working with Mrs. Ricky, a guidance counselor at MHS and an advisor to the Breakfast Club, whose goal is to make school a positive and inclusive place. We would like to incorporate a goal of having no one have to sit alone at a lunch table into this club. If the app called Sit With Us is allowed at school, the Breakfast Club would help promote the use of it, the app being a way to say that you allow anyone to come and sit with you. If using the app isn't the best option, the club would use other ways to meet the same goal. Although the problem of being uncomfortable at lunch may be lessened at high school through this, exclusion of being uncomfortable at lunch is also a problem at the middle school and elementary schools. I would like to know if and when this issue would be put on the school board agenda due to the importance of this topic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask her a question?
Yeah.
Elizabeth, what was the name of the app?
Can I stay here?
What was the name of the app?
Sit with us.
Thank you. All right, Oliver Woodward.
My name is Oliver Woodward, and I would like to say that even though Chromebooks have been helping immensely with students to help them learn in different ways than simply looking at writing on a chalkboard or a whiteboard, it's also been holding some students back. There has not been restrictions to stop students from playing games during class times and other times when it's not okay to play games.
Thank you. All right, that concludes our community
We have one
communication.
more, Jim.
Oh, we do?
No,
Okay.
sorry, is that okay?
I don't have a slip.
Just bring your sheet up. Okay, yeah. Can I go? I signed in, I signed it.
Oh, well, you, okay, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, I apologize.
No,
I'm
go ahead.
gonna keep this on 3 minutes.
Mr. Olson, when you're done, if you could just fill out one of the speaking sheets and back so we have one for the record.
So sorry, I apologize. You're fine. Under 3 minutes, there we go. All right. I'm Ray Olson, 727 River Heights Road. I've been teaching 22 years at Menomonie High School, coaching 21. First, I want to say thanks. We have a track because of your partnership and our partnerships with business, teachers, coaches, parents, community foundation, charities, and it is an awesome thing. You guys got a great facility at less than half the cost because of the money that was raised by these people. It is awesome. We've had 7 track meets over the past years, 2,500 different athletes from 34 different schools. We've had 4 middle school meets, 1,500 kids have been on that track. Both genders. We're not just talking about one sport that affects boys. We're talking about girls and boys, all abilities. I got kids with Down syndrome on my team. We could not have them on the team if we were still at Stout. We have a track on our facility. It is awesome. Our track is amazing, extremely well designed. You got a lot of value for that money. It is awesome. And our partnership is working, and it's working really well. Phase 2. lights, sound system, here's what we're gonna get. Ability to host meets in the evening, improve safety, heat is a concern in August. If we have lights, we can practice football, soccer at night. We don't have to worry about overheating, things like that. We will impact 7 teams, boys and girls track, boys and girls cross country, boys and girls soccer, lower level football. If you light a couple of the tennis courts, you've improved boys and girls tennis as well. Community benefits, walkers are on that track every morning. And I talk to some of these people, older men, older women, they say they don't like walking on the sidewalks. There's cracks, it's slippery, you put a button on there, the lights go on for 15 minutes, and they can walk safely. And as a group, we're not asking for all this to be paid for by the district, but we're asking for a good faith effort like we did with phase 1. What we're asking is to bring our facilities up to where Colfax and Boyceville are, and they have the types of things they have. So thank you so much for the commitment you made as a board to get us that track. It is a premium facility, and now let's get on to phase 2 and get these lights. Thanks for your time. 150. Woo.
That's really great. Moving on, revenue and expenditure reports for the month.
Okay, I have 2 months' worth to review tonight. The first is the year ending, so June 2018. The revenues ended the year at $36,962,440.55. We were slightly higher, well, we were higher than the anticipated budget. That was mainly due in part, a large chunk of that, $409,000 was from HRA forfeitures. Those are forfeitures from staff that left the district but were invested in that HRA, and it several years' worth had backed up with the benefit company, and so we, with the advice of our auditors, put the back years on our books, so we had a higher than anticipated revenue there. Also Medicare, we don't budget for that because it's too unknown. We don't know what the government is going to process in a year, so that was higher. And then also our interest, we had higher than normal interest. The interest rates have been up, and so our invested funds were slightly higher. In Fund 21, our gift donation accounts.
Can I ask advice before you move on?
Sure.
Totally lost me there with the HRA and backing it up. Can you explain what that means?
I can explain that. When the retirement benefits changed years ago,
Right.
And instead of providing insurance benefits for retirees, all new hires, all new teachers that are full-time, the district puts in $2,200 per year.
Right.
So when those teachers, if they've been here for a few years and decide to go somewhere else, they would not invest because they don't retire from the district. So that money that the district contributed over those years is in the HRA program with Mid-America. So there was not a mechanism where that money was being resorted back into the budget. So it was accumulating there. And when we looked at it and the auditors looked at it, it was felt that it was best to put that on our books so that we keep track of it. So that's really what she was talking about.
Okay, so if you're a teacher, you're here for 3 years and you leave,
That'd be, yes.
then the 3 years that you, of your HRA would be gone and the district would take that money back, is that? Am I
Right.
understanding that correctly?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a retirement benefits. So if someone leaves before they retire, it resorts back to the program.
So
to the
at
fund.
no point in time, like after 10 years or something, you become invested with it?
Not unless you retire from the school district. And that's similar to our previous benefit
Right.
with the health insurance. Unless people retired from the district, they did not get that either.
Okay, and then Fund 21, our gift donation account, we ended the year at $485,107.50. We had a large, the Margaret A. Cargill Foundation grant is a big chunk of that. That was $300,000. We received that this last year. And then we have our Fund 27, our special education fund. We ended the year at $5,953,203.61. If we look at our June expenses by function, We ended slightly higher than last year. We ended at 100.49% compared to 98.24. That contributed to that additional payment or excess payment we made to Stout for the turf field. We did that in June. And then we also made that additional OPEB contribution. So I will be having a budget revision coming to the board at the next meeting to adjust for all of those additional expenses that we had. And then June expenses by object, same thing we had, we're slightly higher, we're at 100.73% compared to 96.42%. For those same reasons, plus we also had the refinancing of our debt service that contributed to that as well. Does anyone have any questions for June? Okay. Going on to August, our revenues are right on track. We're at $38,246,098. We'll see more aid money, state aid money coming in September. In Fund 21, we're at $23,802.63. And in Fund 27, we're at zero right now. Our state aid funding, our first payment's made in November each year, so it's pretty typical where we're at there. Our August expenses by function, we are currently a little higher than we were last year at this time. We're at 6.71% compared to 5.30%, mainly due to bill timing. You'll see the insurance, we've paid a higher portion of that compared to last year. It's the difference between paying in August or September 1st. That combined with business administration, costs have been higher. We received the school safety grant, and so we've had higher expenses in that area because of that grant. So, our Fund 27, we are currently at 1.21% compared to 1.24% for special education, and then Fund 50, we're at 3.55%, which is higher than last year at this time at 2.63%. And then if we take a look at our expenses by object, that breakdown, there again, it's higher. We're at 5.27% compared to 3.72%. Some of that is due in part to, you'll see our benefits is quite a bit higher. That's just due to timing. We've paid out our premiums and our claims, but because we're self-funded, the claims come back to credit that, and that just hadn't been put in yet. So, does anyone have any questions?
Leah, on the expense function, and maybe you already answered it, but if you look at other support services.
Oh, yes. That's a little high, and that I forgot about that one. That's because DPI changed the technology function. We've always coded technology to $260,000. They made a revision, and now they want us to recode it to $295,000, and so the budget doesn't reflect that. I won't revise the budget until October. And this revision came out in July, and as you know, the preliminary budget was already set in June, and so that's why that one's higher.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Good question.
Anybody else? Thank you. Thank you. Moving on, board member, superintendent communications. Pretty quiet.
Oh, I already sent it to Kevin directly, but thank you to the new middle school driveway and the work that was done there, so I don't feel like I'm going to lose the bottom out of my car every time I pick up or go in and out of the middle school parking lot. And hopefully the water's going to flow when we're done too.
Anyone else?
I just have a few things. First of all, congratulations to Dan and Penny. They're going to be recognized by WASB in the recognition program. All board members get points for attending conventions and conferences, and I know that several of you have already reached different levels, but Dan and Penny will be recognized at the regional meeting. Also, just a couple things. Homecoming, we heard about that from our student representatives. The board is invited once again to participate in the parade. I know last year we had a few people ready, but then the storm wiped us out. That was pretty nasty, but if you would like to either walk or ride in the parade, if you could let me know by the end of the meeting, or at the very latest, email me tomorrow. I know that there's a lot of work being done at the high school and they'd like to plan floats and such. So it'd be great to have some representation there. It is September 28th. Lineup starts at 3:30 and then the parade starts at 4. And then finally, I added this in there today. We've had some requests from the building sites to reconsider the drone policy. If you remember, a couple of years ago, drones in schools were relatively new, and the insurance that the school district purchased didn't necessarily cover liability in the event there was a problem with the drone. So at that point, we put in a fairly stringent policy on drone use. We do have a new insurance carrier, plus I think a lot of those policies are changing to catch up with the times, and our current policy does cover liability for drone issues. So we're going to be reviewing that policy and bringing some recommendations for you to look at the next meeting. And I know that like in the STEM area, there's some mini drones and things that the kids can program. It's pretty cool stuff, so you can expect to see that. There's always registration for different professional development opportunities for board members, and that's listed in board docs. Please contact Jamie if you're interested. Thank you.
Okay, moving on, the monthly employment report.
Any questions at all? Okay.
Just a question about the new hires.
Yes.
It seems like we have quite a few new hires. Is that new hires that are taking the place of somebody? Or is that like we went out and hired new people because we have a need for people?
It's mostly having to do with filling vacancies, especially with the hourly positions. Those positions are usually filled towards the end of summer, once we have a better idea of what our enrollment is going to look like.
Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to?
Move to approve.
And a second.
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All right, let's vote.
Did it change? I would. Yes. I don't think we don't have it. I would have that person.
All right, motion passes. Moving on to personnel consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
And a second. Yes.
Do we know if the fee is going to be waived for her?
No, it's not.
How can we go about this message to be able to have it waived?
The board could do that. It'd be, in the employee handbook, the board has the right to waive certain fees. Typically, if a teacher leaves during the contract year, fees are established due to the fact that the district has to find a substitute, and then also the challenges that it causes for the school and the classroom.
But it also is a health crisis that I don't think was planned on her end either. So I guess the compassion card in me would love to see a discussion if we can consider having it waived or at least downsized. Because if I read right, it's $2,000, no?
Is that right, Sam? 2,000?
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. And just so board members know, anytime we have a situation where someone might request a leave to help an ailing parent or something like that, we certainly work with our employees and different options are provided, whether it be FMLA or whether it be temporary leave, things like that. Sometimes employees just decide that it's in their best interest just to resign, so.
Sure, and I think she's been an employee before. She's worked on our track team for numerous years.
Right, she's a new teacher this year.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, there's a motion second, but certainly that could be amended and the board can do whatever the board would like.
I would make a motion to waive the fees.
Second.
I'll second it.
Are we, okay, so we're going to vote on the amendment to the motion first?
Just a motion.
Just a motion.
Just a motion.
Is this something we can even be discussing now, or does it have to be a closed session? Because it's a personnel issue, I just throwing it out there.
Has nothing to do with her hiring. She's not here anymore. It's just the fee that she pays. It
But,
has
that's
nothing to
fine,
do with her ability.
I'm just,
If the board wants to have a discussion about circumstances, then I would suggest you schedule a closed session. If you simply want to take the resignation letter that was presented and vote on the motion that was presented, you certainly can do that as well, but really it's up to the president how he wants to handle the situation in terms of voting.
And I'll throw it out there. Do we have a preference? Do we want to have a discussion in closed session? Does anyone request that?
I would like to have one more back.
Okay, let's postpone that, table that motion, and let's vote on the,
Well, once you schedule the motion and vote for the next meeting, closed session, rather than table it, because see the difference in parliamentary terms. That's what I would just suggest.
do you want to amend the whole, warrant? Let's see, how do we want to do this now? You want to table the whole resignation decision until then?
Well, I'll tell you, I'll amend my motion to, can reconsider this resignation letter at our next board meeting in closed session. Consider waiving fees in closed session at our next board meeting.
But still accept her resignation now? Is that what you're saying, Jim?
We have a motion and a second on the floor right now to.
Correct.
I know.
And if I motion,
Yep.
since I made it, and if she approves of it, then it's okay to amend my motion.
For the second one. All I'm saying is we still have to deal with John, with the motion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we want, we could table that until the closed session.
But I have a question again about resignation. Are we letting her resign?
Well, that's what I'm asking you. Do you want to table the
Whole thing?
the whole thing until we have the closed session and then decide all at once, or you want to just
I
vote
think
on
we
it?
need to vote on the resignation portion of it.
All right.
If we want to discuss the.
And let's table the discussion until.
Postpone.
Not table, postpone.
Postpone.
Or postpone, yeah. Postpone, yeah, excuse me.
Yes, postpone until the next.
All right. Okay, let's do that. Or do we need to vote on the postpone?
So the very first motion, just so I'm clear, on your resignation, who made the motion and who?
I made the motion and Dave seconded.
All right, we're postponing the second motion, and we're only going to vote on the first motion to accept the consent agenda for personnel.
The first vote is for the resignation.
First vote is for accepting the consent agenda for personnel, which is her resignation.
Item 3A, that's what we're.
Yeah. All right. Are we all clear? Okay, let's vote. motion passes. Moving on to item 4, discussion items, introduction of the Home Sweet Home Menomonie program.
Okay, thank you for waiting. Dan, go ahead and introduce yourself. Jamie will pull up the presentation. If anybody wants to follow along, the board members already did receive it.
Jamie, I've got about 6 left, and I'll keep
Yep,
you
and
over.
he's got a clicker right there for you.
You can run that for me. Thank you. Thanks for hosting me tonight. I'm Dan Osterman, representing the Greater Menomonie Development Corporation. Joe is a member of our organization, actively participates when his schedule allows, and he's a very active, engaging individual when he is there, so we really appreciate the school district's representation. Joining me tonight is Eric Turner from the Dunn County Economic Development Corporation, and it's important for Eric to be included because this story goes back to a car ride to Madison in February when we're trying to figure out a way to help stimulate some of the issues that we are facing, not unique to Menomonie certainly, but to the entire region as we try to find ways to bring people into our community. Our industries receive incentives, both federally, state, local, to build and expand their industries here. They too also receive incentives to employ people through different forms of tax credits after they have created that particular position. We wanted to approach this differently about trying to find an incentive to recruit that employee. And not just recruit that employee for a participating employer, but recruit that employee to become a citizen of our community and get rooted here and have their families become part of the community, get involved with our K-12 system, our restaurants, our gas stations, other forms of commerce, and help grow Menomonie. Jamie, if you would, the next slide, please. Thank you. And this really resonated with this article that was in the Wall Street Journal back a few months ago, where there's other communities that are being faced with similar challenges and how they're trying to address it. This article was based out of Ohio, and they were offering incentives of the range of $5,000, at least in the short excerpt that I included here, but the article went on to exhibit other incentives that were in place. So Eric and I have begun our search to try to find what can we find out there as best practices to put into a program that we could put in place here for Menomonie. And our goal is that if successful here, within the confines, if you will, the city limits of Menomonie, we could blow this out to include the entire county. And another element that would be impressive to us if we could get tapped on to have this program be benchmarked in the Chippewa Valley and elsewhere within our region. So we'd like to see this grow and be prosperous, but for now we want to start it here in Menomonie. Jamie, excuse me, next slide. Home Sweet Menomonie is a combination of a collaboration between private industry, public industry, and nonprofit. And how that collaboration comes about is we are relying on the nonprofit organization, the Community Foundation of Dunn County, to be our conduit to have funds flow into, and then from there, they would push those funds to the city of Menomonie, the private sector, actually the public sector, that would administrate this program for us. They've got the resources in place to already help us process applications, fund loans, administrate the loans all the way to payment and then revolve it again. And then the private sector comes into play where us as industry, whether it be the finance community, the realtors, the employers that are looking at needing to hire employees, school district, mail, anyone that participates can use this as a tool to help not only recruit new employment to their enterprises, but help use it as a tool to sustain existing employees within their organizations as well. We're looking at a sum of loans of up to $10,000, and we feel that that dollar amount is substantial given that the price range of homes in Menomonie generally are in that $100,000 to $200,000 range, so this is felt to be material. It would be of interest-free for up to 10 years, and if during that 10-year period of time you were to make improvements to this property to the at least the equivalent of the original sum of the loan, the last payments, the last year of payments would be forgiven. So the incentive there is to see our community grow and become more rooted with new individuals coming to our community, existing individuals come maybe from that non-owner occupied environment now to an owner occupied environment. But then once they're there, put improvements into their property. Maybe it's a deck, maybe it's a roof. All in turn, which helps the assessed value, which has an impact on your organization that you represent, certainly the city as well, and just overall, folks, let's just admit it's going to be great for our community to see it become better in that respect. Any questions to this point? I just want to pause there for a moment. Okay, certainly I'm available for questions at the end as well. So with that, we'll try the next slide. Thank you. So the steps to the program are laid out, as you probably are seeing maybe on your screens, as well as certainly as what's projected there, is we would go out and work with the community foundation of the county to go out and recruit funds that would be made as donations to the foundation. And we've met with the leading industries in town already, and there is enormous support for this. They want to get on the program now. Our goal, however, is to launch this the first of the year. Okay, so we've got a little bit more time, but there's overwhelming support for this. So those private enterprises that would contribute, it would be their employees that would be eligible to apply for this down payment assistance program. Those that contribute, we're going to develop marketing material that they can use with their logo on it as their marketing would allow. Then could be used for new employee orientation, for recruitment, annual employee benefit meetings. All we'd ask is that they at least annually exhibit this product to their staff. Those that would have an interest in it would have a short application that they would fill out, and they would submit it to the city. We're not going to get involved with the approval of the loan process. We're leaving that up to their primary lending institution. I don't know, I'm not involved with mortgage lending at my institution, but I can just say since the recession, post-recession regulation is created home loan mortgaging into a process. So we're going to let the primary lenders make that approval decision. That decision then would be in the form of a commitment letter that would be accompanied with the application to the city. We would run through some very basic validations on the application. We would make sure that the institution is for sure committed as indicated on that letter. Then we would communicate to that applicant that they are indeed eligible, and then the meter would begin. Up to 90 days they have to go and close on that existing home or commit to the construction of a new home. At any time during I'll just pause there for a moment. Any questions with that part of the process? Yes, sir.
Is just one idea here, I guess, what you're looking for with this $10,000 is if a person doesn't have a down payment, or not a down payment, but the initial money they need to put forward in order to get a loan, is this kind of money to take place of that? So like, take a $100,000 loan, you got to put 20% down for your own cash. Is this what you're trying to do to make
this could be used towards that? That's going to be up to the primary lender to make that decision.
Okay.
There is enormous regulation out there that govern this, and we're going to let the lead lenders make those determinations because they're the ones that are ultimately at risk. And so they're going to conform with all of the current and proposed regulations. Any other questions? Okay. Once they've been approved for that loan, then they're going to be able to have time to get out there and close on that loan. And once closed, the loan, like any other loan, will go into repayment. If during that repayment period of time, which again could be up to 10 years, they so choose to want to sell the property, the loan would have to be repaid. Convert the property to non-owner occupied, the loan would have to be paid. This is meant to incent them to buy here, construct here, and stay here. It's meant to mitigate that runoff that we all see of employers that employ individuals that reside outside of Menomonie in this case. And ultimately outside of Dunn County. Where what they do for Menomonie is maybe a little pay at the pump gas, an occasional lunch, and they're out of town. They're not contributing to K-12, they're not contributing to the other commerce activities in our community. We're going to evolve this to where there'll be a website out there tied in with the city that will go into greater delineation about the program. And again, there's been already enormous support, and we're looking forward to having City Council act on this next Monday. And they'll be the leading role because of the funding that's available through some revolvements of other programs that are out there. Any questions?
I just have one. Your website, is that just to show what you're looking at for the website? Because when I click on it, I get an error message.
Right, because it's not there.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Yep, that's under development.
Okay.
Yep.
I'll make sure, thank you.
So we had wanted to launch this a little later, but once the word was getting out, the incentive was there to come forward with it, so. But that's a minor aspect.
No, yeah,
if you will.
I guess when I look at the link, I was expecting something to work.
That's good
So
to
I
know,
just
it's still
wanted
not there. Okay. Any other questions?
David?
Would you, would this be open to all lending institutions in Dunn County, or would you work in the city?
It could be any lending institution. It could be even an online originator.
Okay.
Because there's different forms of origination out there.
That's good to know.
We would like to see our area lending institutions financially contribute, which those that I've talked to of the leading institutions in town will be contributing. And so, you know, we anticipate others will, but not all of them will. What's key here, Dave, is that we have employers that are contributing. That's where the bulk of the contributions are going to come from. Because it's going to be their organizations that will stand to benefit the most from this. And certainly, you know, there's other offshoots that benefit of it. Joe's seen it right away. I mean, this has got enormous benefits to your organization. You know, it does. If we can have a broader population with more students, a higher tax base ultimately. And so this can have a very rewarding effect.
Has there been, can you talk a little bit about other parts of the country where this has been done and the success that they've had with it? Maybe you might have touched on that already, but have they been piloting this quite a bit, this type of program?
Not just piloting, it's been in existence, and the nearest program that we pulled some of our benchmarking from is a program in Wausau, Wisconsin. So that's as close as we found where it's been as robust as we want to make this to be. And in just, excuse me, Eric, has it been 2.5 years in existence?
2.5 years.
2.5 years in existence, and it's been wildly successful. They have a waiting list of approved applicants. So they're looking for more contributors.
Question.
Yes.
So what you're saying is if the school district donated money to this fund, then that would be money that would be able to loan new school employees that would come to town and want to buy a house.
Precisely. Yeah.
Correct.
So it's a tool to existing faculty and staff as well as potential recruitments. Joe, did that accomplish what we were trying to communicate?
I think so, and I'll just say that when I heard this presentation at the Economic Development meeting, it really just struck a chord. Because I know that we have several employees in our school district, whether we're talking about teachers, members of the administrative team, some of our hourly staff members, that would like to live in Menomonie, but just haven't been able to either find something that fits their needs, or in like this case, maybe afford that level of house that's available. There is a limited market in our community, and something like this might allow someone to purchase a house that they wouldn't be able to. And I think we have more people interested in living in town now than what we had a little while back. We have a lot to offer. I think we all know that. When I did those stay interviews a couple years ago, talked to our employees about why they liked it here and what were some of the key components to being here. Salary and benefits really were not very high on the list. It was really about what our community has to offer. And I think we all understand that when we go to the store, we go to church, or go wherever it is, we see so many of our district employees contributing to Menomonie and the Menomonie area in many ways. And it really has a positive impact on our community. But then when we look at an ability to maybe expand that, I think it's just a terrific opportunity that we should consider, and certainly we'll be bringing more information to the board and asking what kind of involvement the board would like to support at some point. So, yeah, Dan, very good, and appreciate you being here.
Thank you. Let's just look at a couple of slides. I think I already talked through these. Yeah. I talked through this. There's just an example of the marketing piece we were working on. The Community Foundation of Dunn County is going to help us with all the marketing. They've got the talent and staff and the properties to be able to do that.
So, like Dan said, not only is it great for employee recruitment and retention, but then you look at our state aid and being based on enrollment, and our revenue limits based on enrollment, and you look at our tax levy and the mill rate being based on the valuation of our property, this could have a significant impact on our school district.
Eric, did you have anything you wanted to
I think you hit all the points.
Well, thank you, Joe.
So the money that gets donated by businesses and organizations, does that go into one big pool and then get sent out, or does it get like, if I'm Phelps Plastic and I donate this money, it only goes to my employees?
It's not aligned specific with their employees. It goes in, it stays in a pool.
Okay.
But because they donated, their employees are eligible to apply.
Right, okay. Yep.
Yes.
So, school district employees then would only be eligible if we make a donation.
If you're an eligible participant, your employees would be eligible to apply. Yes.
Okay.
So, yes.
Any other questions?
Thank you. Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Eric. I will say it's really neat to go to these meetings and see all the work that's being done with local business people working together, thinking about not just their own individual businesses, but our community as a whole. And it's really something to see. It's really encouraging.
Board members, we need to make a vote on that postponement. Shall we do that now? So Jim, you made the motion to ask for the postponement.
Motion to put considering, to waiving the resignation fees as a closed session item in the next meeting. Yes, I guess that was how I ended up, basically.
So you amended your original motion?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
There was a...
Yeah.
Who's second?
I
Okay. All right, so we have a motion and a second.
I got a question.
Yes.
So, do we have to vote on the amendment first, or we just vote just one time for this?
The one time to vote
Okay.
for the postponement.
Okay. Because it was two different motions and that
It was a friendly amendment.
Okay, gotcha.
My seconder agreed to it.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're voting on the postponement.
Okay.
That requires a vote.
Thank you.
I should have called for that earlier.
I thought so, but.
Thank you. All right, let's vote.
Penny?
Yes.
Ryan?
Yes.
Heather? Yes. Dan?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Tricia?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you. All right. Moving on, grounds, building and grounds report.
All right, Kevin, thanks for being here today. And you already heard one compliment from the board regarding the middle school project. And yeah, it's perfect. Is the light blue on that microphone? Feel free to turn the mic on if you'd like to as well.
All right, thank you folks for sharing the document that I have. I'll go over some of the highlights. If you have any specific questions, by all means, stop me. We can talk about those items. Staffing. The grounds department is fully staffed right now. We did have 2 resignations and 1 retirement since I've been on board. Those positions have been filled. There's been a little bit of moving around between sites, staff transferring around, but we are full. Service contracts, not a whole lot. I did get access security to now cover the entire district for fire panels, testing and inspections. Due to the referendum, there was another company in at the high school that has since expired, and we saved $5,000 a year on that, so that was a good move for us. They seem to do a real good job, so I'm happy for that change. A couple of purchases that we made in the department. Excuse me, the biggest one being the toolcat. Looking forward to this winter being able to take that out and put it to work. A few attachments we got with it. We've had it out already doing some grounds care, pulling some stumps. Really handy tool. I think we covered 3,000 some feet of sidewalk for the city, so this is going to help us tremendously with the room. And some other smaller items, snow blowers, grounds equipment that we've added to our itinerary. Projects. Kind of broken down by each location. I'll talk about a couple. High school had a couple, or had some cameras added to the existing surveillance system. Shower stalls, I think this was a pretty good move over in the field house. Pool area. We switched from the open style showers to stalls with curtains, so it's much more privacy. Pool covers, batting cages, auditorium, new projection screen, some good stuff there. Probably the most work this year went into the middle school. As we talked about a little bit already, the drainage project is complete. Timber Companies from Menomonie was the winning bidder on that. I've gone over a couple times during some pretty heavy rainfalls now, and when we're running hydrants and the water's going where it's supposed to. I think we'll always have a little bit of issue cleaning up from sand coming off the parking lot, but we can easily accomplish that with our own staff. The only real thing that didn't work there is it was a very difficult year to grow grass, so we will be kind of coming back around to that. Joe Pember and I talked last week. He's willing to bring his crew back out and help us with that, so that's great. Let's see what else. Some health and safety kinds of projects over at the middle school. We improved ventilation for the cabins. We added some storage for chemicals and flammables for science, new fire panel. And some general projects, flooring, ceiling tiles, things of such. Allensville, recently in one of my weekly updates I talked about the gas lines. So for whatever reason, the old black pipe remained after the new parking lot went in 4 or 5 years ago, I understand. And it rusted through, we lost some gas. So fortunately, we didn't have to go through the entire parking lot. We were able to locate the pipe and cut one area out to fish a new pipe through the existing pipe, plastic pipe through the field metal pipe. So that worked out really well. Knapp got a really good once over, a lot of paint, new flooring, new carpet, new surveillance system. They upgraded from the old analog, very hard to identify anybody system to the crystal clear style that high school has. Parking lot was reworked there. Oak lawn, a little bit of painting. The gym and commons area look a lot better now. We repurposed one old lab into a classroom, got some new carpet in there. River Heights parking lot, new sound system. And this Conda, we installed some playground equipment, took delivery on some more today. We're finishing the gym floor. So that's kind of the specific sites in a nutshell, not all inclusive, but some of the highlights. District-wide, we're going to start caring for our floors a little bit better. For whatever reason, we weren't stripping our floors. We started that practice. We'll do a rotation. I think they're already looking better in some of the schools, Wakanda especially. Did some tree removal. We had a pretty bad leaner right out here somewhere. 2 of them actually, all safety related. we're not taking them down just to take them down, we're doing it for a reason. 500 more LEDs went in, primarily high school, but we did distribute a few boxes to the other locations. And something that we put quite a bit of time into is getting into compliance with a lot of things. Cross connection, fire suppressions, orders from the fire department. We are sitting good in all areas. We did fire door drop tests last week before. So yeah, I'm pretty proud of getting all that stuff done. Any questions on the done stuff? So it is here.
One thing, when I looked at it, Kevin, we probably should put something about that Old Lawn sidewalk that we partnered with the city on.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's a real nice improvement, making it safer for kids to get to Old Lawn and crossing a busy street.
Yep, yep, so, and that just entailed them taking out a little sidewalk to make it ADA accessible. It turned into a little bit bigger job than we originally anticipated, but went well.
Nice job.
Future plans, just a couple quick things. We're looking at the tennis court right now, very similar to the middle school. The tennis court is simple grade. Seems to be a theme, not only here, I've seen it at other locations. So I'm working with Pember on that to get some ideas. I think it makes sense to fix the grading before we fix the surface, so it doesn't happen again. NAP will eventually need some improvements for their entryway, the sidewalk on the hillside, turn around my directions, but school safety improvements are coming. We're doing a lot there. Film fencing, cameras are going into Oak Lawn Middle School, River Heights. I haven't heard about Wakanda yet, but we did submit for that location as well. A checklist. It sounds pretty like a simple thing, but one of the most difficult parts of my job being new to the school was figuring out what comes next throughout the course of the year. So I'm challenged by Mr. Zadowski to develop something. And my goal is if I, for whatever reason, don't come to work tomorrow, my predecessor can see it and can jump right into things, which I would have found beneficial. So. Questions?
I guess I just have a general question. How do you figure out what you're going to be working on and prioritize projects? I can't even imagine as I'm looking at this list. How does that process even work?
Well, kind of sort of working with building principals and prioritizing each site. And when you look at this entire list, it is quite lengthy, but dividing each site out and putting a number on it.
I mean, because I can understand how like the drainage issues was an important one to definitely address. But,
sure.
So I could see how that would take priority. So then you just sort of list them, you know, in terms of what your knowledge and experience is and what you think should.
And a lot of discussions with Mr. Zadowski too, you know, what funds are available to do what.
Right, okay.
And the 30-year plan really is the key to that. You know, some stuff isn't capital, it might not be big enough, but most of the items were identified during the referendum planning. Many things got taken care of through the referendum, but there were certain things that didn't. So a lot of that's been the focus over the last few years. But then the other piece is the 30-year plan and trying to stay ahead of that.
Thank you.
Do we have an idea when the safety grant that we were awarded, when that will be completed within the district for the protection of our students and our buildings and staff?
Yeah, that's the same question being asked all around the state. Different parts of it are being done as contractors are able to work. There's been a lot of discussion about the security film. There's been challenges there with different vendors trying to, how do you want to say it, maybe manipulate the system a little bit. We worked with CISA 10 out of Chippewa Falls though, very reputable, and they were able to secure the right bid amount because they would only allow $15 per square foot, but that's installed, not just the material. So we have the correct vendor, but the challenge is that vendor has to go all the way around the state. So we have not been scheduled yet, but we are on the list. And but the things like the cameras and fencing and all that, Kevin's been working with the contractors. Some of the stuff is already in the works. Some of it probably won't be done until late fall or early spring. But I think everyone understood that we have until the end of the school year.
Right.
Before it has to be.
Would it be possible just to kind of get a random update, like where we are, like security cameras were now installed at River Heights or something like that, just so that we are aware of what's.
Yeah, Kevin's been real good.
In the weekly report.
Yeah, like the weekly report, like that'd be great. Thank you.
Jim?
What does security film do?
Well, it's shatter resistant film, so for instance, like in Parkland, the person didn't even bother to try to go through the doors. He just shot his way through the side light. I think it was 5 or 6 shots, boom, 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 went right through. So the security film, there's videos out there. There's different products. I know the one 3M makes, there's a video out there. You can see it takes several rounds to even damage the glass, and then much less be able to have someone go through it. So a lot of it's buying time until law enforcement can get there, and also buys time for people to secure, classroom doors and things like that. God forbid.
David?
When do we see the 30-year maintenance plan?
January.
January that comes up?
Any other questions? Thank you, you're doing a great job. All right, moving on. Report on the high school sports complex.
Well, you could hear tonight, there's a lot of interest being brought up about the sports complex again. The good news is that phase 1, which ended up being about $1.1 million, has totally been paid off. The school district certainly was a large partner in that project, not only by contributing $500,000, but also by fronting several $1,000s of pledges. Those pledges have all been paid off and received. The final check came from the Community Foundation last week. So it'll be on the deposit roll at the next regular board meeting, but it has been received by the school district. So phase 1 is totally paid off, and it's my understanding that close to $50,000 has been raised towards phase 2, which is the lighting and sound that several people talked about today. A lot of what was talked about today had to do with the track, and certainly the track is terrific, and it's really great to have our students be able to practice there and not have to go onto the university campus to practice and such. But I would say that I'm really impressed with the community being on the track. It seems like every time I'm at the high school, whether it be morning or afternoon, there's some community members out there walking. And then also classrooms. We have a lot of classrooms that are able to use that facility. So in addition to the athletics, it's also used in a lot of different ways. And I've heard a lot of positive comments about having that in our school district. I don't know if the board is interested in moving forward with any of the phases, or what kind of partnership the board would like to consider, but I am happy to report that phase 1 is done and phase 1 is totally paid off.
Heather?
How many phases are there?
Well, that's a good question. In the document that I attached, or I think I linked it in there, really there was 3 phases. Phase 1 was the track and field, and then phase 2 is lighting and sound, and then phase 3 would be restrooms and bleacher pads and the parking area. At the time that this project was originally conceived, I think there were dreams about hosting varsity football by the high school. I think with our recent contribution to the Skating and Stout and the new turf, I think that's solidified our long-term commitment to playing at Williams Stadium. I personally have no desire to see varsity football leave Williams Stadium. I think it's a tremendous venue. I don't think in a community our size there's the need to replicate Williams Stadium. At the same time, I absolutely understand and agree with some of the concerns that the coaches and parents and kids have brought up about having to practice in the heat of the day in August, and then also having the limitations with light. A lot of their activities are at times towards the end of the fall when days are getting shorter, or in the spring when days are short and starting to get longer, and especially with the colder weather. But anyway, I think it would be a tremendous improvement. I would say that phase 2 definitely is necessary, and at least a portion of phase 3 is necessary, but I don't think building the large grandstand for varsity football is something that we would want to consider at this point.
Jim?
So when we were discussing this before, we were guaranteed by multiple people that we would not there would never be another request from the school district to put any funds into this. We're actually even told we probably would need to do phase 2 at one point in time. So I really don't, I mean, if, great, if they want to show us a check for the $200,000, let's talk. But until the cash is in hand, I don't see any obligation on our part to consider contributing any money, because it was promised that we would never have to do that. So I think that's pretty much get out there and raise the money like you said you're going to. That was the way it was supposed to be in the beginning. We weren't supposed to have to put a penny of taxpayer dollars into this, and the group behind it should keep their words.
Amy?
I've been on the board for, this is my 11th year, and so I've been through this quite a bit. And I would have to say that back when this all took place, we were told that no taxpayer dollars were going to be, that the whole foundation was going to raise for all phases. And then the board went ahead, and I think it was a pretty close vote, 5-4, to donate the $500,000. And then they wanted us to borrow them some money till they could get all the extra stuff in so they could finish phase 1, which they did. And I agree, the track is nice, and I thought that that was, the beginning would be, a track, let's have a track. And then now they want more money, and if this is what the community really wants, then I think they need to put the dollars forward. That is my consideration, because again, I'm going back to being told that there was going to be no taxpayer dollars. I agree that sports are important. I think it helps build character and a lot of things, but I also think we have a lot more important things that we need to think about too. What if somebody were to come and say, hey, let's build a great big art center? Are we going to allow that too? I mean, it's one thing after another that they keep asking, and I just think that, the taxpayers and the constituents I've talked to are not for this. I think they like the idea of the track and having it, but I think they would like to not have to pay for it with their own tax money. That's all. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Moving on then.
I have one more.
Okay.
Sorry.
I have, it's always perplexed me how, when the community raised over half the funds to build the initial sports complex, and we were able to put up a facility of that quality for less than 50 cents on the dollar, then we still have people that complain about it. And, I think the benevolence of the community and what they've done to fund this to this point has been tremendous. And I think to ask the school district to go half and half on a future lighting project for the district is not out of line. I think that we utilize facilities with Stout for a long time. We put up with a lot of problems, transportation of the kids to that, availability for practice, kids on the road, all kinds of issues that we had. And we heard tonight a lot of the positive benefits that come about because of the track facility. And I guess for myself personally, I'd be in favor of the board supporting half of the construction cost or the lighting cost and what it would take to do this next phase. And I think that there's a lot of benefits to track. We do support the arts. Menomonie is well known for a lot of things besides sports in this district. And my kids have done extremely well outside of athletics. And I have no problem supporting the athletic side of it as well, because it's not just for sports. It gets used for a lot of high school class activities, things like that, special needs, kids that can't participate in some certain programs can work out and do things on the track that otherwise wouldn't be available. And I think that having the option to host bigger regional contests and have them go into the night, which happens a lot when you get into bigger track meets, especially as the sun sets a little sooner here in the fall. I think that I'd be in favor of that. I'd like to see it come back next month for more discussion and possible vote.
Anyone else? Just my thoughts have been that I would like, personally to wait and see how our budget progresses through the year. We always seem to have some money left over at the end of the year. And also, as we go on, we'll have a better idea of what the funding will be for the future. So my preference would be to wait off a few months and see how things are going to shape up for our finances in the future. That's my.
Any other board members?
I would just like to say, being, somewhat new, not knowing the history and the background, it's interesting to hear that, that side, but then I also kind of agree with David, with the safety and security of lights, but it's just interesting to kind of gather all the information, so I appreciate what has been shared, and if there is anything out there, to kind of learn more on, what was decided in the past, I'd be interested in finding that in board docs, but I just appreciate having that background knowledge.
Jim, I think I vaguely remember, because I believe I was on board also, but I was thinking it was the hockey rink, that we were only going to support one time.
I remember that,
Yes.
$25,000.
Yes, and so we did that one
Yeah,
time,
no,
so.
it was the
It was
sports
for the complex, okay.
Yeah, and we were guaranteed that we would never hear another request for taxpayer money to support this, if the community would fund the
So-
entire project.
Who said that, or who?
Mr. Betcher, Joe,
Okay.
and the guy, I forget his name, the guy was in charge of
Jim
it.
Schmidt.
Jim Schmidt, that was, yeah, we were, all three of them were promised that.
Well, I know it was promised that with phase one, all the money would be paid back and there wouldn't be any request for
That was
any.
flat out,
What?
Mr. Betcher.
I don't remember it that way.
Mr. Betcher sat right there in that chair and he said, we will never ask you for another penny.
If we get the $500,000.
Yes,
For phase one.
Right.
forever. That's it. It's the only request we're going to
For phase one.
for the project. For the project. For the project.
I think, personally, I think there's a discrepancy on what we remember.
I don't.
I would just like to, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I'd like to address your because the community uses it, it's great and everything, and so forth, and you said a lot of things. But it seems like the lights kind of come secondary. I mean, it's great because during the day and all of that and so forth, and I know that they want to, use the lights for the heat of the night, but it seems like most of the people use it during the day as it is. I mean, so why can't we just wait a little bit till we see what happens, But I still would not, at least for my vote, I would not vote to give half of the money.
See, one of my concerns is the amount of school that kids miss in the fall and spring. And for instance, some of those track meets that we are able to host, they have to start so early, and which means kids are missing more school. Now, it is nice that we have a home track, so it's a little bit less than it would be if we didn't have a track and kids had to travel like they used to. But it does require kids missing more school. And we didn't hear from any soccer people tonight, but I think soccer has had a huge benefit. But again, the limitation on being able to host multiple events in any given day is really tricky due to the limitation. But I can understand your point. When I first saw the grand plan, actually before I even started this job, I had some people approach me about it. And I had some sticker shock for sure. But like Dave said, and what some of the coaches said, our facilities actually are subpar compared to even some of the small schools in our area, and our ability to host because of the lack of lights. And then to try to host an event and not have a sound system is a real challenge. And our coaches have done a nice job with it. But I don't think it's extravagant what people are asking for. And I think the committee that worked on this really kept their word in terms of not bringing anything back until everything was funded and paid back. Certainly circumstances change, boards change, and expectations change, and I think that's what I'm looking for, some direction from the board. Is this something you want to hear more about? I've kind of heard some mixed messages, and I'd appreciate more input.
You know, maybe it would be good to check out some of these schools and find out how much it costs and what they did. How did they raise their money, and did they have to go to referendum or taxes to do it? It would just be really nice to see what some other communities have done.
Well, I can tell you a private-public partnership like we had here is extremely rare.
Pennies on the dollar compared to somebody's at $5 to $6 million put into sports complexes. Sorry.
Yeah, okay.
My first big vote as a board member was for the sports complex. And when I first came on the board, I was really kind of anti-sports complex. But then when you did factor in the business buy-in from the community and the value that we were receiving, it only made sense. And so if we can get the same community buy-in and if they want to go out and raise part of that money, I would be completely in favor of looking at if we can get lights and sound systems at the same value that we got the original phase of the sports complex in. I think it's something we definitely need to consider. If our businesses are willing to invest in a situation like that, it's important to them, we need to make it important to us.
I have two comments, but I can't remember what my number one note says here, so we're just gonna forget that one. Do they need to have, does the group of people, the community need to have support that, yes, we support you to be able to go out, and then yes, we can wait to the end of the year to say how much finance? Because that's my other thing, I don't wanna hold them up, even if we say no. I think out of respect, we need to support them. I mean, if a group of teachers and staff and community are coming forward and say, hey, we want to raise this, I feel like we should say yes and support that way. And then hold off on the money part, if that's the. This is not, I hadn't remembered. But in regards to other things, in the past it was talked about drumline competition. Stout, they used to host a huge drumline competition and they made a very nice amount of money on it, but we unfortunately didn't have it, so they would have to bus them all there. So that was one of the other art programs that they would be able to do at our facility and invite all the area drum lines, and they can have their competitions there too, so.
In terms of timing, Tanya, if there was any chance to have lights for this spring, I think the board would have to decide soon. Even then, it might be, I don't know whether or not you get a contractor here and get them up before actual competition would take place.
Sure.
We wouldn't be hosting any kind of regional meet now, but the applications for hosting future ones,
Sure,
you know,
right.
the longer we wait, the longer it is. I do think that the board's decision will impact fundraising.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
I guess my only concern right now at this point is just trying to get information. You know, not having the benefit of all of the conversations that have occurred in the past. When I was reading through this earlier, I just felt completely overwhelmed because I feel like I need more information about how things came to be before. But the other thing is, and maybe this is unrealistic, but I kind of feel like there's, I mean, and I have one kid that's very much into sports and the other kid who's very much into arts and theater. And as much as I want to support the sports part with, you know, the improvements, the lighting improvements I could see, I also want there to be that support with arts and theater. And I know you can't, you know, say, you know, well, for sure be able to support whatever project comes up for arts and theater, but the people that I talk with a lot, are talking about equity and trying to figure out how they can have that support. Because I think they're hearing a lot about the sports complex.
Right.
And so I guess, I don't know, in the end I need to have more information, but I also just want more of a guarantee that we're also going to provide that support to, you know, the arts and theater and music. Which I think we do a lot of. I'm not saying we're not doing it, but I just would like, especially if we're going to be looking at this kind of money, that there's something more public about it, you know, support of this.
I guess I just add that one of the referendum projects was some work that was done in the auditorium, you know.
Yeah, not much though. Yeah, and that's.
Well, that is, to me, is a tremendous facility. I was up at another school giving a presentation here a while back, and when I left there, I thought, man, we've got a nice facility in Menomonie with the seating and the stage and everything. It was just, you know, I went to school here, I grew up here, and took it for granted all these years, but when you go away and see what, and even, I was over in Eau Claire at another one here this winter, and we have a really nice facility, a theater there that,
I would say that I know some specifics of the needs that are there at the auditorium, that we could do a lot more. We could make it a lot busier, it could be booked a lot more often if we did some improvements there. But I'm not saying we need to focus on that right now. I just, again, I want to support the sports complex, but I also have this other.
And Tricia, I really appreciate you bringing that question up, because we don't get a chance to brag about some of our arts as much as we would like to. But I know that when I came here, that's something that Mr. Betcher and I prioritized. There used to be more of a rotation where you could only have one large production. Or how was it every I can't remember, was it every other year? And right away we scrapped that, and now we're able to have larger productions every year. And then we, in addition to the referendum work that was done, I mean, there's a tremendous music area now in our high school, but we've been making annual improvements as well. I think the projector was probably one of the most expensive improvements that we made last year, and that was used in the Addams Family production quite a bit. I know the sound system, especially with some of the, not FDA, there's some frequency changes coming, and FCC, thank you, I was blanking there. So there's a lot of things that people don't see that we have done, and we continue to prioritize, and I know Mr. Burr could speak to it pretty well, but no, I think it's a point well taken, but I also think that there's been a tremendous amount of support. The other thing that came to mind is the traveling trailer to haul music equipment and stuff. That thing was on its last leg, and I know that there's a partnership there as well. So bring something forward to the board, bring some more information, and perhaps a proposal for the board to consider coming up here. That's kind of what I'm hearing.
I guess I'd at least like to give the folks at a fundraising direction one way or the other. I mean, if we decide we don't support it, fine. If we do, great. But at least I think we owe them that much.
And it's going to take us a little bit, a lot of the numbers were from 2014, so those all need to be updated. We'll get updated numbers, provide some more information 2 weeks from now. Also, it'll give board members an opportunity to ask additional questions. It's really helpful if you send those questions ahead of time so we can research them and then load them into board docs, but certainly there can be a discussion 2 weeks from now. Also, that will allow us to finalize our third Friday September count. I think Dan's point about making sure our budget's set is a very good point. And it's important to also know that when you look at expenses like this, they are one-time expenses, and that's a huge difference with one-time expenses compared to something that would be recurring. You know, the middle school improvements that we're able to make, the safety improvements at the high school with the parking lot and such the year before, you know, those one-time improvements, we know that our budget is going to be better this year. Well, I actually don't know for sure, but we know what our budget is this year. We do not know what it's going to be when we look at 1920.
Okay, so we'll put this on the agenda for next week. Moving on. Item D.
Okay, so D and E somewhat go together. They both have to do with the transportation discussion that the board has had over the last couple months. And we shared information with you, sample policies, state laws having to do with transportation. And in looking at our policies, oh, something just happened to my board docs here. Gee,
It says warning, connection to server must check your network.
no, I'm trying to open up the attachment, I can see that part. Do you have the paper copy?
The board doc, which
Yeah, I do. Yeah, she is a big.
Thank you. Okay, so, and this is not asking for a vote, so even though it's inconvenient that the software program is not working, it's not our web server, other things are working. Okay, so policy 751 is a policy about student transportation services. And when we had a meeting at the end of August, it was suggested by the board that the terminology related to transportation for students with either disabilities or temporary physical disabilities, the wording along with that was updated. Instead of saying as recommended by the Assistant Superintendent for Student Services, it now says in accordance with state and federal laws. And that's much more common in terms of policy language.
Well, what are you on, 750?
751.
Okay.
Okay, and I see my board docs just came back on.
Oh, 751. Okay.
Did I say the wrong one? No, this is 751, and the other one's 751.1.
I'm with you now.
So this is the first one. So the first one was in the second paragraph, and that's what we already talked about. But also in reviewing these policies, we also found that the 4K program, the transportation for 4K is different than it is for the rest of the elementary. And I don't know if that's because the policy was outdated, but what we did is we worked with Menomonie Transportation. I know Brian, he works directly with our 4K sites. So it's not asking for any kind of change in practice, but it's just better reflecting our practice. Because with 4K students, the pickups typically offer at home or daycare sites that are within the attendance area of the established bus route. So those are the two recommended changes to that policy. But before I go to 751, are there any questions or other comments about 751 by the board members?
I have a couple. When this was the policy was first created, or I guess I'd like to know the history behind the distance from a school and when a bus picks up a child. So kind of the first paragraph,
Okay, so
K to 5 students
yep.
with 1 mile bus.
So that's what state law is. School districts, if they're going to provide transportation, need to provide transportation for students that live 2 miles or greater from the school. That's consistent with state law.
Okay, and then my other question is, the sentence, students attending private schools shall also be transported in accordance with the state law requirements. So from my understanding, anyone that goes to a private school here in Menomonie can be transported anywhere in the district.
That's state law.
So why is it because they're private? And do we get anything like money-wise from the school for the extra transportation?
Well, it's a state function, so Leah actually is working on transportation reporting right now.
Yeah, we're able to help the non-public schools.
So it doesn't come from the private school, it comes from the state.
It comes from the state. So someone that's going from, let's just say St. Joe's, comes to the north end of town to get dropped off or whatever, do we get any extra?
We get aid,
You get aid.
transportation aid on them.
So I guess I'm just curious how, and maybe it's a state law, I don't know, but how then someone maybe at Oaklawn or on the east side can't go to the north end, or someone at Downsville. I guess I'm just trying to know that little bit of history. If that is a state law then that occurs?
Yeah, it goes to that 2 mile barrier.
Because it just seems like maybe a tad unfair that the public schools can be taken anywhere in the state or in the city of Menomonie and be dropped off versus someone who's going to a public institution at school and not be taken anywhere.
It just comes down to that 2 mile radius.
Well, how does that, okay, I'll use my daughter as an example. So when she was an infant, she went to daycare here at the north end of town. when she went to school at Oak Lawn, we were told there's no transportation from Oak Lawn to the north end of town for her to get childcare. But yet someone who goes to St. Joe's can get transportation to get childcare at the north end of town. So I was trying to find out why that is, and do we get any extra funds for that? Because that just seems, I guess I'm trying to figure out why the privates can do that, but the publics can't.
I think we'd have to look at the specific residents we're talking about, Heather. I'm trying to understand it, but I think we'd actually have to look at the location. But some of it comes down to the residents of the school and the attendance area. And St. Joe's obviously would have a different attendance area than Oak Lawn.
Well, this child that I'm speaking of, that does go to St. Joe's, she would go to Oak Lawn. But she was then getting transported to the north end of town for daycare when she was at St. Joe's.
But her residence,
She would be considered an Oak Lawn student.
but is she from the,
Is St. Joe's more than 2 miles from her residence?
Yeah, she's in Cedar Falls. She
She
kind of
qual-
fell into
so
that
she-
area.
So she qualifies for transportation. Whereas if she was going to Oak Lawn and it was less than 2 miles, she would not qualify for transportation. And that is the state law. And-
Yeah, she would, because my daughter qualifies for transportation.
Oh, I thought you said she was within 2 miles from Oak Lawn.
No.
Okay.
I'm just trying to figure out what that wording is behind this policy. And is the district or the school district bus company getting any extra money for transporting these students that go to the private college or private schools?
The funding the private schools have nothing to do with the funding. It's a public mechanism. We report to the state how many kids ride based on our policies and state law, and then there's reimbursement, but the reimbursement is limited, and I know I shared that with the school board. That's part of the issue. Depending on how far they're going, what year it is, I listed that right there in board docs for the board members. There's different reimbursement levels.
That was just kind of when I was reading these, and trying to understand the history behind that and the policy with the public and private schools and that sort of thing, so.
Anything else in 751? It's not working.
No.
Okay, well, I'll just cover what the recommended changes were. It's not going to be voted on tonight. If you have additional questions, certainly you can send those through. We can answer them. And if the board's not ready to vote, we'll actually have another meeting before we ask you to vote, because the voting meeting will be in October, so there'll be more time. But then, just to cover, was there a question? So 751.1, the bus routing and scheduling policy. Again, there were a few changes just to reflect the 4K in terms of the routes.
Any other discussion? Questions? Okay, moving on. Item F, summer school report.
Okay, well, Mary, we must have a paper copy, you know?
Donna can get up.
Oh, good.
I have that on
All right. Oh, you can stop sweating.
Yeah, I know. This is a clever girl.
What?
So for anybody, Susan Mobson's also here. Susan served as our summer school coordinator for how many years? Several years. Terrific. And Mary Bagley started July 1st, has taken over as our summer school coordinator. So thank you, Mary.
And Susan is the foundation of the awesome summer programming that we currently have right now. If you look through the report, you see we have a lot of things in place. Pay particular attention to the pictures, because the pictures really do show the wonderful things that are really happening in summer programming. So during summer programming, we have Summer Academy, 4 weeks enrichment, and which is 4 days a week. River Heights in the high school. We had Friday field trips. Only missed one because of the heat, so that wasn't too bad. We have August summer camps, art, STEM, and superhero. We also offer wraparound for boys and girls clubs. So after they come to summer school, they go back to boys and girls club and have some other kind of coverage and activities. We have lots of sports camps that we are working with. We work heavily with Parks and Rec. And a collaborative at UW Stout, where about 60 students participate in the STEAM experience at UW Stout. Our enrollments, each of them, our enrollment versus attendance were different, but each of our camps got an initial enrollment of anywhere from 250 to 275. You'll see that the attendance varies from that, and we're going to work on kind of helping out with that discrepancy. The academy, we had 305 students at River Heights and 882 students at the high school. And our Friday field trips, anywhere from 25 to 60 students attended those 3 field trips. Also for those high schoolers, they had opportunities to get credit recovery in all of these classes. 74 high school students recovered credits during summer school. So that's really awesome. Online courses for high school also, so not only did they could participate physically, they could participate online. And these are just some of the courses that were offered. We had the 8 online opportunities, 80 district employees, 20 out-of-district employees. Those are teachers, not counting all of our paraprofessionals, not counting all of the background work here at the ASC, because summer happens to them too, all of them. It happens to human resources, it happens to the business office, it happens to the curriculum office. So it's not just physically in the buildings, it's here all summer long as well, and we need all of their support all summer long. So they also have additional duties regarding summer school. We provide free busing the 4 weeks of the academy and the 3 weeks of summer camp, so it's also Menomonie transportation that we work with all summer long, and they're just super. So again, some more pictures, food service. We feed a ton of kids at the high school in a short amount of time. If you've been there, it's crazy.
We go to the point where we've actually had to bring in tables from other buildings to feed in to make sure that we have enough seating for the amount of students that we're serving in that short period of time.
During camps, the Boys and Girls Club walk over for breakfast and lunch, so they are also there. We had some new classes, Puzzle Mania, which was a huge hit, Fun with Yarn, No Bank Cooking. Again, anything with cooking, hands-on, huge hit with the kids. Kids Strong, put on by Angie Ruckty, doing some leadership kinds of things. This, over here, it's an astronaut if you're not sure, but it's all Rubik's Cubes, and then they have to manipulate them to create that mural. That was a really fun class, and also
They take them apart?
yeah,
No, they
created design to create a piece.
They don't cheat.
Of but there's online programming that shows them how to manipulate them to create certain sections. I mean, it's
Algorithm, as my 11-year-old told me.
Oh, yeah.
Simple. You just gotta like this.
Simple algorithm.
That's how you can.
Uh-oh. Oh! Okay, so just some visuals. Pets with Vets is always huge. She brings in all kinds of cool animals. Woodworking, again, Mr. Sherry does a phenomenal job.
And going back one slide, one of the young people who were speaking earlier today was talking about Ms. Ruckty's Breakfast Club, and that's her leaders in the Breakfast Club are actually the ones who took the class as Kids Strong for the first session, for the first hour, and then taught the class to younger kids in the elementary realm than for the rest of the school day.
Okay. Our first field trip going to the Steyr Farm, we almost had
the next. I couldn't go along because we didn't have a seat available because there were so many kids who showed up.
Yeah, and they loved it. Fishing was the one we didn't get out to the nap pond, and Dale Dalkey, who was here earlier, was the only one that didn't get the memo that we were coming. Everybody else knew, and we forgot Dale was meeting us out there. So.
Was that the high heat index day?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
huge high heat index.
That was a good call.
Yep. Hiking, it was again a little bit high, so we had lower numbers because it seemed like Fridays were the days it was really hot and humid. And so some families just chose not to participate. So our camp, always super fun. The school's got big murals and all the kids worked on them. 12 different artists, and they had additional teacher art is helping them. STEM camp and then superhero camp. Some of the little ones came dressed up as superhero, different superhero every day. One told me, these are my pajamas. I said, "That's okay." So here's our enrollment at the high school, kind of historically looking from 16, 17, 18, 3 years back.
Mary, could you pause this just for 1 second?
Oh, sorry.
So, board members, remember we talked about 3 years of data, and I know this is one that we flagged as important. So I appreciate Mary, she had sent the program, and then this is one where we modified, because board members want to look more at the longitudinal data. Sorry, go ahead.
Yep, thank you. So art camp. Yeah, they did some cool things at art camp. Whoa, slippers really fast. So STEM camp, I mean, we see that increasingly go up. We did offer it to the younger kids, and I think that's why we had a higher enrollment this year. For all of our camps, our biggest enrollments were for the little kids.
K-5.
K-5. Of those that enrolled and those attended, we had 80% of kids K2 that enrolled attend. Those that were 3-5, 66% of those that enrolled that said they were coming, only 66% came. So we see our families are looking for something for our younger students.
And we don't camp, or cap the camps, so we leave it open, the enrollment, and they can continue to fill it, and it isn't until we get to the very end and we're struggling to make sure that we have enough teachers to fill those spots. So it is really quite open and endless compared to like our field trips, which close up in the first 24 to 48 hours.
So our challenge is figuring out with the enrollees and the attendees how we can service everyone. Superhero camp, we did put the 2015, because that was the very first year we did pirate camp. And I was part of that, and that's why we saw a huge spike the next year, because everybody thought it was so awesome, they wanted to come and join it. It was a really collaborative effort with the teachers and really planning it, and Captain Joe, that was your first year too.
Yeah, I was waiting for
We had to
that.
save him.
In 2017, we tried to revitalize the pirate theme, thinking that we'd probably outdone it, so we went to a superhero theme and again saw an increase, but we may have hit that cap in terms of excitement for that with 108 this year. So looking at maybe a new theme.
How about Fortnite?
Yeah. And it's also the third camp, where pirate camp was the only camp that year, and we offered the other three. We added on, and so now by the third, we have the third year. So no to Fortnite, I think.
Well, you can do a Fortnite theme. I would not play Fortnite. So we 5 years ago, we had 0 August camps. And then you look at all those numbers, it's awesome. I mean, it's awesome from a financial standpoint and our student enrollment, but it's even more awesome the number of kids who are doing academic activities. It's wonderful.
Any questions?
Thank you for the data. I appreciate seeing that.
What's our capacity? I mean, what's the ability to have, I saw 800 and some students.
We're at capacity.
Okay, yeah.
Especially at the high school.
In terms of the buildings, so we have to host at River Heights High School. That's how we get the free breakfast, free lunch program. So we have to maintain it there. Prior to this, if you've been here a while, you would know that at one point we were using Oaklawn in the middle school, and then with the construction we used Wakanda Oaklawn in the middle school. But those were exceptions based on some construction that we've done. I can only speak to the past 5 to 7 years, but so we would have to, if we wanted to expand further, we would either go longer days, more weeks, or expand out and look at other options like when Dr. Zadowski talked, we didn't have field trips and the additional camps in August, so we could look at doing things.
We just need to put our creative hats on.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I just need to talk out, then maybe not like raise my hand. Sorry, I'm starting to get this how it works over here. 2 questions, and they're kind of like opposite things. Can you help me understand, my understanding, and that's why I want to be corrected, are some of our teachers Parks and Rec employees and some are school district employees? And if so, what makes it one versus the other?
So historically, when I signed on, we were a collaborative effort between Parks and Rec and the school district. And historically, they took the majority of sports type programming, and we took the majority of academic type programming. Over the years, that's morphed and changed as different things have come about. We've brainstormed different ideas for new programming. But yes, over the years, many of our teachers have opted to work for Parks and Rec or opted to work for us. Sometimes it's just what they offered versus what we offered and where their interests lie. And so we have continued to do that collaboratively to the point now where we've been working so close-knit for so long that we've decided to make it as easy as possible for parents in terms of enrollment. So now we enroll everyone, and we are able to recruit all the minutes from both entities, and actually more, because we use CBTC and Stout now too, to collaboratively work together. So they're all technically under our heading, one would argue, but yet they are paid by different funds, like Boys and Girls Club, Parks and Rec, CBTC.
Part of it is wanting to maintain a partnership with the city instead of excluding them.
Yep.
Okay. All right. And then I was just curious, modifications for students with disabilities. Can they go to any camp? Should parents work with, like during their IEP in regards to their summer programming for their kiddos? Like what would be the best way that I could help families so that their kids get involved? Because there's one class which is phenomenal. The teacher was a rock star who was there this year. But then selfishly, I guess I look at myself, my kid's gonna get bored really fast and he's gonna start seeing what everybody else is doing and want to participate, which I can't blame him. So how can we do a better job so that all families feel that they can participate?
That is something that we want to talk about in our debriefing with Tony at Whiskey and really talk about what would that process be and what would that look like. So that's something
Good,
that
awesome.
we're going to talk further.
And we've tried over the years to be as inclusive as possible and to give opportunities for all kids so they can sign up for things, and we try to support as much as we can. We just can't necessarily offer all the accommodations that are written in the
No, totally understand. No, okay, great, thank you.
Any other questions?
I just a comment. We had when the kids came out for the field trip on the farm, one of the things we did, our kids show pigs at the fair. So we take them out and walk them every day to get them exercise before the fair. And so we're bringing the pigs out of the barn, and the teachers that were assisting on the field trip were like, have you ever done this before? Kids just clawing, we're ready to go and chase pigs and herd them. And so we had the 8 pigs and you got 60-some kids, and it was chaos. It was pretty cool. We'd like to do field trips every year, but I know that doesn't always fit your guys' schedule.
All right, thank you very much for a wonderful program.
Great report.
Okay. Action plan and timeline for the district's 2019 medical insurance.
If there's no objections from board members, I'm going to go ahead and let the principals know that they can head out. I know they have an early morning tomorrow. Any objections to that? Directors, I'm sorry you're stuck. Principals, you're welcome to stay. You're welcome to stay.
I get a new pass Thursday, so I'm hoping I can type with a new pass, so.
Can we sign it?
I want to sign.
Wait for the new one. Okay, like Dan mentioned, we're talking about the medical insurance renewal, and we're going to follow a very similar timeline, an action plan for what we've used the last several years. Board members received it last Thursday. I don't know if anybody, I see somebody still can't get things. But basically what the timeline deals with is that we work with our consultant from Associated Benefits and Risk Consulting, and then also Medica as the administrator of our medical insurance plan. So we've already had some preliminary communications, and it's looking really good. As you all know, we had a 0% increase this past year. We think we'll be able to achieve that again in 2019. So we do have a timeline for reviewing everything. We are looking at some options, in the event that we wanted to mitigate our expenses further. Right now, I don't think anything's going to be recommended, but basically just to give all the board members a heads up that we'll be working on this, meeting with our health medical committee with staff, and then hopefully have everything wrapped up for board approval in October with open enrollment for the staff November 1st to the 21st. The effective date of the new plan would be January 1st. But again, it's looking really positive. We built in a 3% increase into the budget, the preliminary budget. We're hopeful that we're not going to have to do that or use that, but things are looking good right now. Any questions or suggestions for the timeline?
Okay, moving on. Item H, program resource review timeline.
Brian, do you have oh, good, Jamie. You have the PDF, so that'll work. Okay. Thanks, Brian. Go ahead.
All right, so the document that was included in board docs, as well as Jamie has provided up here, shows the previous 4 years of our program reviews and resource reviews. In the center of the page, 18-19, you can see that this year our 3 areas that we'll be focusing in on are social studies, world language, and personal financial literacy. We update this when needed. The most noted update happened at the tail end of last school year. DPI has shifted to a recommended 7-year cycle for a review of standards at the state level. So we shifted a few things around to coincide the year following those standard reviews. So you can see that over the next 4 years after this year, our plan as far as going through and reviewing programming, you'll notice that math and English language arts, as they pop up, become essentially the reset of the whole process. You can see that we reviewed those back in 14, 15, and those programs. As far as taking a look at some historical information, last year we focused in on K-5 science, and that obviously was timely because of not only the state's adoption of new standards, which you saw at the start of, or midpoint of the summer, but also at the elementary level, because we had focused on English language arts and literacy, we decided to wait a little bit on science, kind of as a breather based off the feedback from our staff, but also to make sure that we did that job thoroughly and effectively. So as we went through that process, some things that we identified as strengths when we went through that process last year was that consistently we do well in comparison to the state on our state level assessments based off of our prior standards, and our staff have done a good job of looking for ways to integrate those science lessons into other areas. But the team did go through and identify some needs, and I'm happy to report that we've been able to make a lot of progress on those needs from that previous review. Staff identified a need to update resources, which we assembled a team to do that, and we updated our resources. Our staff are receiving ongoing professional development this year on those new resources, as well as the standards themselves. That had started in the summer in July. We'll receive some follow-up in October, and then ongoing throughout the year with professional development this year. In addition, when we looked at our schedule at the elementary level, the identification of some more consistent time allocations for science that also coincides with social studies instruction as well, which is nice that we're able to align the social studies standard process this way. I'm happy to report that our staff will be working on what amounts to a 30-minute rotation with science and social studies, making sure that students receive that weekly instruction as they go through the year. And our staff are, I think, very excited about that. At least that's the initial information that's been shared. And then as we look to the future, we're going to continue, obviously, to monitor our implementation of science, the PD that goes along with that. But then when we take a look at our program reviews specific to social studies, world language, and personal financial literacy, that work kicks off this school year. Our October PD day, those departments will have some time to begin their work, taking a look at current standards as they've come through and been updated. So if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer those at this time. But again, this is something that we review with our staff on an annual basis to see if there are any tweaks that need to be made, but then also as we look at our planning for the future.
Jim?
How does the rotation work between social studies and science? If you're not getting that every day, you know, how you're not spending all your time reteaching and those sorts of things?
No, that's a really good question, and that's one of the things that our staff at elementary identified. For a while, it had been practice in some of our schools to go unit by unit, where they do a unit of one and then a unit of another. But we are required by the state to do weekly instruction in both. That being said, allocating at least 30 minutes of instruction for those, for both science and social studies, staff at times will go and they will identify that as far as a unit in science, if they're doing an experiment or something like that, where they do 2 or 3 days in a row of one, because it lends itself more appropriately to that instruction, and then they'll jump into their social studies and then balance that. But making sure that students are receiving that weekly instruction in both of those, as opposed to, in some cases, if it goes unit by unit, you might get 3 to 4 weeks of one and then the other, and then there's more reteaching. Our staff would definitely love the idea of being able to do daily instruction in both. That being said, when we take a look at the length of our instructional day, it proves a challenge. And I know our staff that went to our social studies boot camp this summer actually received a fair amount of feedback from other districts that it was nice to know that we were looking at a structure that provided actually more instruction in social studies than a lot of their counterparts in other districts would have. That being said, we do look to our literacy instruction for some of the initial pre-teaching that can take place in social studies. That's one of the things that our staff have been very intentional with our current literacy resource. 4th grade, for example, when we take a look at Native American studies, that is a piece that's included in our literacy resources. So then taking a look at Wisconsin history, for example, and opportunities to bring in some instruction in that area, not in place of the social studies instruction, but some of the what we'll call pre-teaching that goes with it.
Any other questions?
Board docs is back.
Thanks for doing the, I don't know about all of you, but I really like this graphic. I think this is really helpful for everybody to not only understand what we've done, what we're doing, and what we're going to be doing. So thanks.
I have one question about the world languages.
Yes.
So, in the past, we'd offered a wider variety of world languages, and we've had to cut back. Is there any, what does the future look like? Are we going to just stay with what we have, or are we looking at maybe heading back to any of those, or?
So one of the things that happened with the program review is the department will take a look at ultimately what their recommendations would be. That being said, as far as the process for proposing courses and those types of things, that does come forward to the board each year, usually based on recommendation from staff. I do know last time we had our strategic planning process, for example, one of the things that did come up was looking at the expansion of our world language program specifically to elementary. And I know we did have quite a bit of discussion and did a fair amount of studying, and we were actually, I won't say surprised, but as we looked at it, actually the ability to support an interest from our community, we actually decided to pull that back at that point in time. And a lot of it is driven by enrollment too. And our Spanish program continues to see increases in enrollment. When we offered German, for example, we were seeing the enrollment was actually declining in German at that point in time. So I know we had a lot of conversation as to whether or not to continue that program. We did have a staffing change at that point in time. And for the board at that point in time, we made the recommendation to that board to not continue with German, and that was the decision at that point.
We're having a hard time finding a half-time position.
Yeah, and, you know, as you're aware, half-time and full-time positions are obviously easier to fill. There was at one point in time, I mean, we even looked at the potential of offering Mandarin in the district, and there was interest, but we couldn't find somebody to even teach it. So, you know, that obviously plays into effect.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Anything else for Brian?
Item I, strategic planning update.
So there isn't much else to report tonight. I am leaving on the agenda. Tomorrow I'm meeting with the principals, and Brian and I were going to be scheduling the student groups and also finalizing community groups. So if any board members have any other thoughts about any of that, now would be a good time to share or contact us via email. Anybody?
Who are students being chosen?
Well, the Studer kind of lays it out in their message. I think there's going to be some direct invitations, but there's also going to be some open sessions as well.
Okay, I just want to make sure that it's got a good cross-section, and it's not just all honor students.
Yeah, Joanna assured us that they would.
Yeah, I knew she said that, but I just want to make sure.
Great. Okay. Moving on, next item, planning for the 2019 State Education Convention.
I think most of you have had the opportunity to attend one of the state conventions. It's highly recommended. We want to make sure, though, that the accommodations are good. I know we had one year where people were spread all over the place, so we're trying to get ahead on that. If you're interested in signing up for the state convention, please contact Jamie so we can get everything lined up. I know we heard from a few people already. We are not presenting this year.
Sure.
I'll email you, but I'm going to go to the legislative thing on November 8th, since you go with policies at 10. But I'll send you an email so you have it in writing.
What are the dates again for this meeting?
Oh, let's see, January 23rd to the 25th. Typically, we go down Tuesday and come back Friday.
All right.
And Tricia, even if you can't make it for the whole time, I would encourage you to go for what you can. It's really something to see all the different presentations.
Last year they had a really good presentation on Fund 46.
I heard it's the best one.
It was.
Capital improvement finance.
That was definitely the best one.
Which one?
I hope that camera's rolling.
All right. So the 2019 Model Schools Conference.
Along with the school board convention, I also wanted to ask the board about the Model Schools Conference. I think you heard from several of our teachers and principals about what a great experience that is. Similar to the state convention, that fills up quickly. We weren't able to stay on site this year, which definitely made it more difficult. So I would like to take another group down there, get the district represented. Do any board members have any concerns about that? I just wanted to.
I would highly encourage it.
Yeah, so yeah, go for it. Something that was really.
I just have a curiosity question. How do they choose which teachers during, is it like everybody puts their name in a hat and then how do they figure that out?
Well, last year was the first year, and I think we asked for interest, and the principals, I think, worked with their staffs. We want to make sure that we had every building represented and then every level. So we have lower elementary, upper elementary, specialists, middle school, high school, physical services. So we would do something similar to that, Tricia, is try to get representatives from each level.
No, I think it's great. I'm glad you guys go.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great.
Can we come with?
You know, I actually did see a school board member from Sun Prairie there.
Oh, really? That's good to question.
Typically, I think it's more for the educators.
Yeah. I just go for vacation.
You just go and hang out while they're all.
Exactly, kid free.
I know, meeting's over and back in board docs.
Well, then Jim, maybe you could review the next meeting dates or something. I don't have them. Oh, here we go. September 24th, special board meeting, 5:30.
Yep.
Our visitors from Japan are coming. Now, it's a much smaller contingent this year from our sister city, but they'll be here starting the 23rd. The homecoming parade and game is the 28th. Anybody want to raise their hand for walking or riding the parade?
I'll do it.
Penny will go? Do you want to walk or ride? Do you have a preference?
I'll walk.
Okay. Anybody else?
How far does it
walk?
rain?
It's not too far.
I think I can go.
Hey, I can come.
Okay, Jim, you want to ride though?
Sure.
Okay.
What's the,
3:30 at the Leisure Center, the parade starts at 4.
But plan to get there plenty early because parking.
Yeah.
I know the kids don't mind if you throw candy.
Can we, when do you need to know by?
You know what, we're gonna have a full regardless, so even if you came late, you know, it's really not a big deal.
Okay, well, there's just a Stella event fundraiser that day, so I need to figure out what.
I'm just glad to hear that we have some representation, so I can let them know, yes, we'll have a car with school board on it.
Is it convertible? This might be my way.
Typically, it is.
Or what's it?
I've never ridden in a convertible.
We should bring her in.
I know, I should get it. Can you bring a cow? Can I pull a cow? Baby cow?
All right, that's it.
I got one thing, I wonder if we couldn't address this with board docs, this issue.
Yeah, I agree.
It's getting old. I just
Yeah.
wondered if maybe some financial compensation from them. We had a couple people here on the bus thing tonight and we couldn't even discuss it. So it's affecting our meetings, so.
I agree.
It's a service we're paying.
Yeah, it's embarrassing.
Yep, I agree.
I think you're supposed to call them and yell at them, I have a second that motion.
You don't need to vote, I got
That
it.
was
We need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.